Hey guys, how's it going? I thought I'd give you a quick review of this Series 2 Rolls-Royce Ghost extended wheelbase that I've been using for a few days from Rolls-Royce London Berkeley Square HRO. And I'm someone that obviously drives a long wheelbase 7 Series regularly. I've driven a lot of the new S-classes. I'm a chauffeur, so I'm used to the luxury car, and I guess I just wanted to talk a bit more about why a Ghost, or why a Rolls-Royce is so much more expensive than, say, a top of the range 7 Series or an S-Class. So the real standout features of this car, I mean, firstly you get in here and a lot of the electronics are lifted straight from the BMW 7 Series. You know, it's the Pro Nav that you get. In fact, across the range of the BMW, you do see various BMW parts in here that are similar or the same as what's in my 7 Series. Now, that's not a bad thing, because obviously the BMW stuff is tried and tested, and BMW spend millions upon millions designing an indicator stalk, for instance. So sharing some of the parts with BMW's tried and tested stuff is not a bad thing. Obviously Rolls-Royce have got to try and differentiate themselves from their sub-brand, I guess you'd call it, and they do that very well. The cabin, for instance, you get in here and it's just, everything's wrapped in leather. This particular one's got lovely piano black trim everywhere, which I think just finishes it off, the black leather with the piano black. The seats are made of very soft, much higher quality leather than you'd get in a BMW. Again, they're hand stitched, and you know, they've got lovely piping on them, and they're just, even though they're quite a familiar feel, they are just that bit more comfortable. And I can tell you from spending sort of 12 to 14 hours in the car yesterday, it certainly doesn't become any less comfortable. And that's just the seats. Where the Rolls-Royces, especially the Ghost, really come into their own, say over the S and over the 7, is their ride. Their ride is just unbelievable. I sort of never could believe that the ride would be that much better than, say, a 7 or an S-Class. But after driving a few of these now, and the same goes for the Wraith and all the Rolls-Royce range, in fact, the ride and the quality of the ride, it just floats along. It's like literally like you're on a magic carpet. It just flattens everything, and it's just so smooth. It's very stable, this car. It's obviously got a lot of weight behind it, so it feels like it does as well. You know, it's very, very stable. It doesn't roll at all because of the way the suspension's set up and all the electronics and the hydraulics, or I'm not sure how that works, but it keeps itself level around corners. You know, it's always flat, which a lot of the Range Rovers and a lot of the sort of the luxury car market have got that technology now, so the car stays completely flat. So there's three things that separate this from a regular luxury car. Number one, the interior is just right up there. You know, everything, like I said, the leather's amazing, everything's hand stitched, the carpets are like that thick. There's just everything you touch as well, even down to like the little sort of inserts where you pull the door closed, it's like a soft leather. It's very nice. So everything you touch is very well made. Interior is number one. Number two is the ride, which is, like I said, plush as anything, like a magic carpet. It's really, really good. Has the comfort and the plushness, but it doesn't wallow. It's completely stable in the turns. It stays dead flat. So best of both worlds. Now, the third thing that separates this from anything else is the sound insulation, or the sound deadening with everything. With the engine, you can't hear the engine unless you're really pushing it. You can hardly hear that 6.6 V12. Number one, because it's so smooth, but number two, because it's so well insulated, and they do that on purpose. Obviously, Rolls-Royce haven't, you know, they're not going to stick a sports exhaust on this. In fact, the opposite, they try and make it as quiet as possible. And the glass and the seals and the door and everything on the sunroof, anything that sort of gets opened and is exposed is completely sealed shut. And the sound deadening in the carpets, and you know, I couldn't imagine how much money and how much weight is in the soundproofing alone in this car. And that again just gives you that feeling of complete separation to the outside world. I think it's a scary concept for people that can't drive very well, because you're really unaware of what's going on. Like, it's deadly quiet. There's a car passing me now, and you might have just heard that, but it's genuinely that quiet out there. It feels, in a way, actually, it feels like you're driving an electric car, because they insulate that engine so well, and you can't hear the outside world. So it's an impressive piece of kit. We'll pull away and just I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to whack the aircon up a bit, just because it is 27 degrees outside. Even the indicator sound is quiet. Listen. Hopefully that won't sound too loud on camera, but even that's silent. So let's we've got the stalk to sort of engage drive. We don't have anything down here, it's all nice and empty. And handbrake off, and off we go. It's just the doors locking. So that was a Ducati Diavel just there, which you probably heard on camera, but again, if I was in, say, my 1 or series or my M2, you would have definitely heard that motorbike. Now we're pulling away, and you could be having, you know, lovely conversation in here. When you go on the brakes, there's no fuss. It doesn't dive too much either. It just does everything. It just does it, and it's so stable, so quiet. And yeah, I'm driving around Mayfair, so it's kind of common sight around Mayfair. In fact, I did a lap of the block earlier on, and I spotted 12 Rolls-Royces of various variants. So let's do another lap of Berkeley Square. In fact, where this car comes from, we're going past Jack Barclay Bentley, and then HRO and Rolls-Royce, which is exactly where I got the car from. There's a lovely R8 V10 Plus, Tesla, Range Rovers. I mean, Range Rovers are everywhere. There's an SVR just there. You should just pick that up just there. We'll go up here. But yeah, as you can see, deadly quiet, coming to a stop. Oh, there's one. There's a Ghost on a 16 plate. In fact, just like this one, but not an extended wheelbase. Black with like a silver bonnet, silver roof lining, I think, and white leather. I'm sure there's a technical term for the interior colour. They do have some fancy names, as you can expect, as all the supercar and luxury cars do these days. You know, you can't just have sort of black and silver. You know, they've got all these really exotic names. Ah, there we go, a Phantom, an original Phantom Mark 1. Now this is the Series 2, I think I'd mentioned that. This is the Series 2 Ghost. So it's, you know, it's got updated electrics. Cosmetically it looks slightly different. They've tweaked the lights and stuff. I think they're LED headlamps now. And yeah, they've just played around with a few bits, like they've updated all the electronics inside here, offered a few more sort of luxury and extra trim bits. And I mean, the configurator for a Rolls-Royce, in fact, they're pretty much endless. I think you can go to town and you can have your own custom embroidery on the seats. You know, it's ridiculous what you can actually ask Rolls-Royce to do. But the majority of the ones you see out in town, I was going to call them run-of-the-mill cars, but you can't really call a Rolls-Royce run-of-the-mill. But what I mean is that, you know, they're not too individual. I think the Ghost is definitely the most popular Rolls-Royce that you see around, and that makes sense to me. You know, the Wraith's incredible. I was lucky enough to have a Wraith, no, not 6 months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and the Wraith was, yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Oh, there's another Ghost just going past on a French 06 plate, Paris 06, isn't it? So yeah, the Ghost, sorry, get back to that. So the Ghost is the most popular, and you can see why. You know, it's a great sort of wealthy family car. It's a great chauffeuring car. It does everything very well, and it's you know, it's reasonably priced for what you're getting. It's certainly not affordable for most people, but for the wealthy, for the lucky wealthy ones out there, it certainly is. And I could see exactly why you would choose one of these over, you know, its competitors. Then you've got the Wraith, which is the 2-door sort of coupe version, which is no smaller really. It's just 2 massive doors and plenty of room in the back. And I was lucky enough to have one for a couple of days a few months ago, and it's fantastic. And although it's the same engine and running gear effectively, and it's actually not much lighter at all. It drives and feels a lot sportier than the Ghost. So I'm guessing there must be some kind of, they must have tweaked it slightly to make it a bit sort of stiffer suspension, although the ride is just as good. So I don't know what they've done to sort of hide its mass, but it's certainly, the Wraith definitely feels a bit sportier, a bit more like a sports car, if you could ever call you know, a 2.5 ton Wraith a sports car. But yeah, so but the Wraith obviously has just got the 2 doors, plenty of room in the back. You can get 4 full-size adults in there, no problem. It's none of this 2+2 business that a lot of sort of luxury sports coupes or whatever offer. It's a proper 4-seater GT car. So yeah, the Wraith's brilliant. Then they've recently launched the Dawn, which is the 2-door, but it's basically a Wraith without roof, with a few other updates. It's amazing. And then they also do the Black Badge. Now, within the sort of range of, for the Ghosts in particular, I wanted to get my hands on the Black Badge when I asked for this car, just because I wanted to see sort of how sporty and fast that car is. Now, I watched the Black Badge go up Goodwood hill climb when I was there a couple of months ago, and I could not believe the speed. In fact, it was a damp day, and the guy behind the wheel was, number one, had plenty of talent, and number two, must have been slightly unhinged, because the pace that he took that car up the damp Goodwood hill climb was insane. Like, it was absolutely ludicrous. And I think on that particular run he ended up 2nd or 3rd fastest. He was right up there. I think the 4-wheel drive Skyline, the GTR, pipped him, and also the Turbo S Porsche, another 4-wheel drive. So 2 cars that you would expect to sort of place right up there in wet, damp conditions. But the Ghost Black Badge was right up there, and so that proved that, well, it's an impressive piece of kit. You know, they've given that, I think that's almost got 700 horsepower. Certainly got about an extra 100 over this one, which is no slouch. Talk about the pace of this car. So it doesn't feel ridiculously fast. It's 560 horsepower, which is a hell of a lot of power. It's, you know, it's a heavy car, there's no hiding that, but it doesn't feel like it's almost got 600 horsepower until you look down and you see the speedo climbing. It just I think it just it hides its pace very well in its mass, if that makes sense. You know, how smaller cars, like small hot hatches, can feel very fast because they're light and nimble, and the reverse is true on bigger cars. They really hide their pace extremely well. I had a V10 RS6 a couple of years ago, and that did the same thing. That was ridiculously fast, but it was a big heavy car, over 2 tons, and you didn't quite realise how fast you're going until you had to hit the brakes, slow down, or you came into a turn. And the same is true for this car. You know, it doesn't feel ridiculously fast, but it is. It's way fast enough. So the Black Badge must be crazy. But anyway, I'm going on a bit. I just wanted to do a quick review on this car and just sort of praise its highlights, really, which are the ride, the silence or the insulation, and the build quality inside. There are a few things that you could write off about it, you know, like the steering column, for instance, is you know, looks like it comes straight out of a, you know, even a 1 or 2 series. You know, a few bits like the rear cup holders, for instance, are straight out of my 7 Series, which in the 7 Series I think already look a bit cheap and out of place. So in something like this, they just shouldn't be in here. But they've got to share some parts. You know, it can't be a completely unique car. They can't have bespoke parts throughout the cabin, because number one, they probably wouldn't work, because that's what happens when you try and make something bespoke. You know, everything bespoke, why not use tried and tested parts? And number two, it just, yeah, the price, the cost of the car would just be ridiculous and through the roof. So it's an amazing piece of kit for what it is, and yeah, I can't really praise it enough. Or it's one of those cars that you have to sort of jump in and either be a passenger or have a drive of to appreciate just how smooth and quiet and well it does its job, and how silent it is. Right, I've turned the aircon off now. The engine's still running, but you wouldn't be able to hear that. turn it off. Fire it back up again. I was putting a really silly face in, wasn't I? Thanks for tuning in as always, guys. Please subscribe and leave me a thumbs up if you like this video. Comment below if you want to ask me any questions. I do try and reply to as many comments as possible. It is hard though because I've got lots of other things going on. I'm not a full-time YouTuber and my channel's obviously getting busier, which is great, but I do miss the odd comment. But I do, you know, I will go back and hopefully answer everyone's comments. So cool, thanks for tuning in, guys. Take it easy.